And I don't know if everybody has seen the Ben Garrison cartoon. Let me take this off. This is getting a little it's getting a little difficult to wear. But yeah, as you said last week, a mask has to be comfortable for you to wear it. Yeah, so this cartoon
right there.
Yeah, so this cartoon by Ben Garrison, I don't know if you've seen it. I've seen it posted probably a dozen times so far, and it shows, if you're just listening to the podcast, it shows Bill Gates taking a look at a plan. You have steps 1 through 666, and he's saying, "We're here." And the steps are: number 1, fear. And you have Edward Munch's scream and a picture of the coronavirus. Step 2, information control and censorship. Step 3, shutdown and social distancing, as though this is part of Bill Gates' plan. Blame President Trump, martial law and checkpoints, and mandatory vaccine rollout. So, I had a lot of comments on this. That, first of all, does he really believe that Bill Gates is behind the coronavirus panic? It doesn't. To say it strains credulity is to undersell it. This is absolutely ridiculous, and it's everything that makes the right, I think, look ridiculous at times. The paranoia, the willingness to buy into ridiculous conspiracy theories, the fact that he thinks that Bill Gates or a group of people led by Bill Gates are plotting somehow plotted coronavirus in order to embarrass the president or blame the president. And here's the real kicker. Step 5 of this alleged plan is martial law and checkpoints. Now, if we imposed actual martial law, not the National Guard, but we had the actual U.S. military out there enforcing martial law, who would order that?
That would be the president of the United States.
Yeah, exactly. So is he imagining a coup as step 4.5, where Mike Pence seizes control of the government, or perhaps, Bill Gates and the deep state take over? I don't know. But the fact number 6 is a mandatory vaccine rollout. We have a minisode plan that talks about conspiracy theories, and so this is something that I think is really important to understand. This is all the elements of a wacky conspiracy theory. It's why this hits the right harder than it hits the left. You have reactants. This thing of, I don't want to be told what to do. People who are high in reactants tend to be libertarians, are more likely to believe in this kind of nonsense. And then you have the disgust element. And if you just look at the cartoon, you can tell every aspect of this is designed to create disgust in the person who's reading it. Bill Gates is portrayed as this kind of evil-looking gnomish figure. The use of Edward Munch's scream, the vaccine, it's all meant to be scary. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I understand that he's using creative license here to paint a picture of what he thinks is happening, but this makes absolutely no sense as a political cartoon, unless you do believe in some kind of wacky conspiracy. I've thought about this. Like, well, okay, let's take it out of the realm of conspiracy. What is he trying to say here? And I think he believes that the CDC or the WHO or Bill Gates and George Soros are really planning this coronavirus pandemic. It just makes me so frustrated. And the fact that I've seen a number of people say, "Oh, I don't want Bill Gates to give me vaccines." Bill Gates isn't giving you vaccines, okay? Bill Gates isn't a scientist. Bill Gates isn't in his lab cooking up vaccines. That's not how it works. Bill Gates has given a lot of his money to make sure that children in India are vaccinated against contagious diseases that every American child is already vaccinated against. Diseases that every American child doesn't have to worry about getting, like polio and measles. And, the fact that this is being used to, I'm not saying that everything Bill Gates has ever done is correct, that all of his activism is something I agree with. But to go after him for vaccinating poor children in the third world just makes people on the right look like absolute lunatics. And what's the point? Who benefits from all of this?
I think you definitely have some of the anti-vaxxer crowd, but I think the other side of it, the more serious side of it, is a lot of people, like myself included, I'm like, I don't really care what Bill Gates has to say about any of this. And I don't know why he's getting so much airtime. I would much rather talk to somebody else other than Bill Gates about what his opinion is of the virus and what he plans to do about it, because I really don't care. I don't want to listen to his advice. You know what I mean? I'd much rather hear from my local chief of police and see what he thinks, or my local fire chief or something like that, than to listen to Bill Gates all day.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Bill Gates is not a scientist. He's also not a computer programmer. His real contribution to society was being able to see the big picture of how computers are going to change the world. And then he used somebody else's software. DOS wasn't his invention. He basically stole it. At the time, it was floating around free. But he's a big picture guy. He's a big organization guy. And I think he's used his philanthropic dollars in that way. He's not a scientist. He's not necessarily an expert in epidemiology. But he does, I think, understand the big picture.
He was also the man early during the computer age that actually said, no one's going to make $1 million selling software. That was an actual quote from Bill Gates back in the day.
Yeah, that's funny. He certainly didn't make $1 million writing software. And he also said that.
That's probably what he meant. That's probably what he meant.
And he was right. He was right.